dude.
That's all right. That's all right. Apparently there was a mix-up because Austin, who I'm thinking works for Nuclear Blast, said seven
Yes, that's
o'clock.
him.
Yeah, he said seven, and
He
that
told me
time.
7:30.
That's all right. We're here now.
He said, "What's up, Austin? If you're watching this, man, what are you doing to me? What are you doing to us?"
Hey, you know what? He's never fucked up on me before, so it was just a one-time thing. But that's all right. We're
Yeah,
here
we'll leave it at
now.
that.
Yeah. So who cares? We're here now. Um,
You can hear me, okay? Through
I
there.
can hear you. I can hear you perfectly. Even that, that was actually very clear.
I'm glad.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much for being here,
Oh, of
and
course. And
doing
what was
this.
the end? Your name?
Stephen.
Steven. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'd rather go by that than old head. What do you
What?
prefer?
I old head is just what I go by when I do stuff for my channel. But Stephen is my name, and I don't care if people call me that or not. So usually, if you get correspondence from me, it'll say both. Just so
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
this is my real name, but I go by old head. It's a branding thing. The kids are doing it these days. Anyway, so yeah, so obviously we're here to talk about Last Day of Sun, which
Yeah.
when this comes out on my channel, it'll be just a few days away because it comes out on November 3rd, right? Am I correct with that?
Yes. Yes.
Um,
November 3rd.
yeah, and I've had about a week or so to really like sort of listen to the album a few times and taken it as much as I can in a short period of time. But I came on board with your band probably around 2021 ish, and it was really because two things that had nothing to do with the music. It was the combination of the artwork for the first album and the name of the band, and I saw that and I went, I think I might be into this. And so lo and behold, I was. And so of course I've been looking forward to the follow-up full length, obviously, for a while.
Yeah.
And so I guess really like when I'm listening to it, the interesting thing to me about Fuming Mouth in general, all the music that you guys have done so far, is that I see it promoted as death metal. And a little bit of that rings true with me, but I think the thing that connects me with the music so much is the fact that it is not just you can't just use a blanket death metal statement on the music. How do you feel about that, like categorization of the music you make?
Um, I know we we are influenced by death metal. We are
Yeah.
when I find the root of a riff and I'm writing a riff, um, I will dig through uh Master's self-titled. I will go to um Swedish demos like Traumatic or something like that, something more obscure.
Uh-huh.
So when we talk about, where a lot of the riffs come from,
Hmm.
um, they all spawn from death metal. So it's hard to not say that, I view Fuming Mouth as a death metal band,
Yeah.
that doesn't change the fact that, Chuck from Death, he was someone that always pushed the boundaries. As
Yeah.
I wasn't around then. I wish I was so bad.
Hmm.
But when like ever I listen to his music or any of Death's albums, like I've realized that, and I try and do the same with my band and with Fuming Mouth. So it might not seem that way,
Hmm.
but it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, actually, it actually brings me to something that I felt for a long time about early '90s death metal, because I basically really got into music in the late '80s and early '90s when I was an early teenager in the early '90s, and that original boom when all of a
Yeah.
sudden Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, Obituary, all those bands were as big as they were ever going to get for the most part. The thing that I remember was that the term was just death metal. So if you were
Yeah.
listening to Morbid Angel or Carcass or Atheist,
Yeah.
it was all death metal.
But you
And
just named three bands that couldn't sound more different.
Exactly. And so that's
Yeah.
why I'm digging what you guys are doing. There's some other bands too that fall into this camp of the death metal thing, but it's almost like coming at it, I think, in a mindset very similar to those earlier bands where they were like, look, to our core, we're a death metal band, but that doesn't mean we have to play by some sort of set of rules and do this particular thing, you know?
Yes.
And so what I think about is with the Fuming Mouth stuff. So you have the basic, so you have the riff that comes out of you, inspired by some death metal. Are there other influences that are unrelated that you find creeping in that you can listen to and go, I know where I got that from?
No.
No.
And I think I really, if anything, I might just drift off and kind of daydream.
uh,
And maybe other music. I listen to a lot of music that isn't death metal, and maybe that slips in through the cracks and just having like an eclectic music taste. I
sure.
think most of us do. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like at the end of the day, just as human beings. And I think that really slips in. And if anything, I find myself wanting to dig deeper into, death metal. The cool thing about our genre is it has roots,
Hmm.
and that's why other genres don't live as long and they die out, is because they don't have those roots. And the even better thing is we have resources, things like YouTube and Metal Archives. I can sit there with YouTube and Metal Archives and my guitar all day and just keep digging deeper into those roots. So if anything, I find myself trying to like push away from some of those ideas
Yeah.
and see how deep I can go into that and really like find like influence from that, or you know influence from that. And I do find inspiration from other artists out there as well.
Sure. Cool. Yeah, because I for a little while I was doing this sort of radio show thing on this app that was called Amp that is about to be shut down because they weren't making enough money. But I was doing these radio shows and I would play a lot of newer stuff, and I played quite a few Fuming Mouth songs over the months that I was doing it. And whenever I would talk about you guys, I would always say, "Look, I'm going to play this for you in the chat. What do you think? What comes to mind when you hear this music?" And I heard everything from Entombed to Converge to Unsane. Like I heard all these
Yeah.
different things, and I go, "Well, yeah, that's kind of all there, but also kind of its own thing at the same time." And I think like that's what is connected with me with the music of what you guys had already been doing.
And
Um,
I think that's all valid too.
mhm.
Like I remember one day we got called crust punk, and then an hour later Anthony Fantano said metalcore. And I was like, this is I don't I'm not even I don't know anymore. You know what I mean? Because those, to me,
Yeah,
I grew up as those are the two polar opposites. And I don't even get upset about that because I think it's
yeah,
all valid. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It was like I grew up in a time period where like metalcore was shoved down my throat as a teenager. I like didn't understand how like whack it was and like how bad it was.
yeah.
And I did. I was like, something's off here. This is stupid. You're all doing the same stuff and you all like
Hmm.
look the same, and like something's not clicking.
Hmm.
And and like you get older, and then that's when those other death metal the real I really was able to dig into what I liked and found what was actually cool and what spawned a lot of the crap.
Yeah.
And like by accident,
Hmm.
obviously, like that's not what, like, back in like 80s 90s, that's obviously not what anyone would want. And then I also grew up going to like punk shows at this, like, I don't even know if you say grew up, but I went to shows at this place, a lot of places in Worcester, Massachusetts, that did like punk shows. This place, the Firehouse, this place, Distant Castle. And I think all of that I saw and witnessed and was in my life, and I'm sure that comes through in the music as well, just as much as the stuff that I'm like, okay, I'm gonna rip off this Napalm Death riff. But I'm gonna do it better, and I'm gonna add in different notes from these bands. And I
Yeah,
think a
yeah.
lot of that bleeds into it too.
Yeah, and the thing with Last Day of Sun that is my biggest takeaway this early on in listening to the album is that the dynamics of what of the songwriting of what you guys are doing. It
Yes.
seems like because some bands progress in kind of one direction, and which is fine because I love any kind of progression. It keeps me happy with a band. But you guys had a little bit of a melodic element, and then of course the aggressive element and heavier element. But it seems like with this album, you've progressed in both directions, where the melodic parts and in the singing parts, of which there's a few, they're more prominent, but then I feel like some of the riffs are heavier than they were
Yeah.
before. So it's almost like the dynamics have actually become more pronounced in the music now, which makes it more powerful. And
Thank you.
uh,
Thank
yeah,
you. That was the
and
goal. It was,
I mean, and it really is a powerful album. Like, if it, to be completely honest, I really think that, like, if you had never said anything about your illness, I would have still been able to take that away from just the sound of the songs. That it just has that sort of quality of a as a listener, I feel like I'm living through the album, kind of as I'm listening to it, and it's really great because it really is a good continuation of the sound that you guys were doing and making it this more potent version of it, I guess.
Thank you. I know, like, say you have a song like "Leaving Euphoria." That song is like,
Yeah.
I learned about quintuplets through watching like videos of James Murphy from like Obituary and like Death on
Uh-huh.
YouTube, and just like reading some interviews with him. I added that to the song, and then that song's really influenced by a band like Tiamat or something like that. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? That like
Hmm.
started out in that Sunlight Studio sound, and then like really evolved into something truly, truly melodic. And then, so we have that on the record, but then we have
Yeah.
a song like Burial Grounds, which I think is like as cut and dry, um, hardcore, death metal,
Yeah.
everything in between, like just
Yeah.
the most like, fastest and heaviest riff on the album. And I think those two songs kind of back to back speak to what you're saying. At least that's, what I tried to do.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. The beginning of Out of Time is like, probably out of anything released this year, is the most I felt goosebumps when a song kicked in. Just the "I am out of time," and then the riff kicks in, and that riff is just so
Yeah.
fucking sweet that I was just like,
Thank
oh,
you.
I felt goosebumps at that part of the song. And that is a way to start a fucking album right there.
That is, that's all Lombardo. There's definitely like so much tip of the hat Slayer. And there was this point where it was like, all right, everyone's trying to be like Slayer. Let's try and go back to our roots. I keep saying that. And like, let's try and do more of a Dismember sound. Still doesn't change the fact that we were like, let's open this album like Hell Awaits,
Yeah, yeah,
but
no, it's
slower.
yeah, yeah, it's true. That's great. Music aside, vocally speaking, another thing that sort of stands out even more now is the different vocal styles that are being switched up, because you do have what I would say is the basic style that it's kind of a very sort of passionate screaming kind of thing, and then sometimes you'll go to a death growl kind of thing, and other times you flat out
Yes.
are just singing. So when I hear those parts, just the songwriter in me thinks of when those choices were made. Like, I don't know if when you're writing a song, you think this part needs to be sung, or after the song is written, when you're playing them with the band or whatever, do those choices get made, or is it in the studio?
Dude, I mean, this one, everything was on the table. Like no one gave a fuck that. And when I say that, I mean it in the sense that I think every one of those scenarios you just listed happened at least a couple times,
Okay.
down to even Kurt Ballou really producing the album. And he's one to speak like, he really likes to let artists breathe, do their thing. He likes to let artists be artists, and I value that so much. But we were
Hmm.
just having so much fun in the studio. I just don't think he could help, or us like could help but to say like, we should have the song go like this, and then
Hmm.
like in I'll Find You, put the guitar solo first, or you know what, I've used that example, like Burial Grounds doing more of like a Metallica For Whom the Bell Tolls, like second fret riffing, and then but then switching it up and having it like go down two whole steps. And he those are a lot of his ideas that he threw into the mix, and that's why I say he helped produce it. As far as the vocals go for that, there's songs like Sign of Pain, which had this amazing harmony in the chorus with singing. And then it just became one of those songs where it was like, you know what, the lyrics are brutal.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not have singing in this one. Let's keep this song brutal and keep like, keep it all screaming throughout it. And then there's other songs like Post Figurement that just take, it's like all or nothing. Let's just dump layers of vocals on there, lots of cleans, and let's really just make this something closer to what Iron Maiden goes for when they have lots and lots of leads, and why they play with three guitarists, why they need three guitarists right now.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Over the
yeah.
years.
Cool. And so that's it's great that you mentioned Kurt Ballou because obviously you've worked with him several times now, and I know that aside from the obvious, like his records sound fucking killer, and he's local as well to you guys, right? With
Oh yeah.
the God City. Um,
He started God City in Allston, Massachusetts, which is I don't live there anymore, but that's where I lived for years.
mhm.
And he moved up to Salem, so it's like it's one of those things where it is really close, and we've gotten really lucky.
Yeah, and aside from that, it sounds like working with him, he kind of gets what you guys are wanting to do, and so I'm assuming that that's what brought you back to him again. Is just that experience the first time around where you just felt really comfortable doing what you needed to do?
Well, Converge was their last like the true Converge album aside from Blood Moon, um, which is collaborative. The the last like true one of just them as a core band
Yeah.
was put out around the same time we recorded the Grand Descent. So he was doing a lot of touring at that time, and when
Hmm.
we tracked the Grand Descent, we tracked a lot of it like guitars and bass. We tracked that with his assistant Robert at the time. So, and then we tracked with his new assistant, who's not really new anymore, Zach Weeks. We recorded Beyond the Tomb EP and the singles.
Hmm.
We've This was our first time ever working with Kurt Ballou every day in, day out, front to
Okay,
back, to the mix, to let's hand this off to mastering. So this was really our first. This is our first true Kurt Ballou record,
got it. I mean, and of course, it sounds
and
fantastic. The dude
and
rules.
that's why we really went back there. You know what I mean? Because it
Yeah.
was like we had never dug in super deep with him. The first album was funded by me at first, so it was like it was one of those things where we didn't have that budget, but now with Nuclear Blast, we did. We had the time frame with him to work,
Hmm.
and yeah, the stars aligned.
That's fucking perfect. So, uh, from what I read, the a version of the album was already pretty much written and ready to go before you got sick. Is that correct?
A version of the album was 8 songs were recorded with uh, a drummer, Charlie Corinne. He's the drummer
Hmm.
of Morbid Angel, Fumbrum, and Incantation.
Hmm.
And I've known about him since his band Astrius Pestis, and they're now Cerebral Rot. But
Okay.
they toured the United States about 10 years ago,
Hmm.
and I known of he. I think he just hopped in the van. I don't even think he was like playing with any of those bands. You know what I mean? It was one of those
Hmm.
things, and I had known of him. I knew he was a talented drummer from other bands he had played in. Like actually, I think there's too many to list, but he came out and he tracked with us, and we tracked 8 songs. I never got to put vocals on that, but
Hmm.
yeah, and then a month, 2 months after that, I got diagnosed with cancer.
Hmm. And
And
so,
that project was not, and just to finish, that project was not ready to go because the vocals didn't get put on it, didn't get mixed. Charlie became even busier. I got sicker, and
mhm.
like, and it's sadly, yeah, there is a whole nother version that could have happened.
So my follow up question to that is songwriting wise, anyway, it's because it didn't get fully recorded. Songwriting wise,
Yeah.
what do you think? What are the big differences between the what the album would have been then and what it is now?
I will be honest, like it's really good to talk to you because it's great to talk to every interviewer, but like as like a one of the there's many noticeable things. One noticeable thing is what I tried to do with this album was listen to our influences, meaning like what was Chris Wright listening to when he recorded Mental Funeral?
Hmm.
And he wasn't listening to his own band Autopsy. So
Yeah,
like I started listening to more Black Sabbath. I started like listening to other bands at the time. It was like everyone at the time was probably listening to Metallica and just like pretending like they weren't.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
that is that accurate?
I mean, I've been listening to Metallica nonstop since I was 12. So I mean, I
Yeah.
so
uh,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, like, dude, it's Metallica, and that's when
yeah,
I was like, I know that James Hetfield has used the Gibson Titan guitar amp, and I think I was just like, damn, I want to use one of those. So I
uh-huh.
used a Gibson Titan. The end product came out so classic that I don't know if it translated into the best Fuming Mouth album.
Interesting.
When talking about it. So one of the biggest changes was like, I want this to be more high gain, more extreme and over the top than anything Fuming Mouth has ever done.
Hmm.
Or when it came to the really big riffs. And that so we changed up amp choices, things like that, drum choices, a lot of different tone choices. Instead of going for a more classic sound, it became more like, what's Fuming Mouth sound like in 2030? Like, what's the most advanced like extremity we can attain?
All right. So songwriting wise, do you think that were there anything that was rewritten or
Yeah, yeah. There's a number of things that was like rewritten. In one of the things was in Post Figurement, the last song. There's like this really big guitar lead that
Mhm.
I play, which is like the one standout moment on the album. It's really the like one moment of hope, and that you should I hope that everyone can take away from the album. And that lead, I I changed all the chords behind it, all the chord progressions, and changing the chords behind it changed how the guitar lead sounded. It's so strange, and it made it sound so much bigger. And that's one example of the many things that happened. A
Yeah,
certain
yeah.
like the best part of what happened in those other recordings, um, those stayed, and then like things changed around it to make parts stand out more. I guess I just
Got it.
had so much free time. You know what I mean? I was just like sick all the time, or I would just kind of
Yeah.
be in limbo. So I just had my guitar.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's the most extreme version of blessing and curse right there, I guess, that you had the free time.
Making the best out of like the shittiest situation. Definitely.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So let's move on to another important aspect of the album because I mentioned when I got into you guys, it was because of the band name and the artwork. So
Yes.
the artwork of everything you guys have done is fucking killer, and it speaks to
Thank
me
you.
in the as a metal fan, but also as a fan of I don't because everybody's got their creepy mountainside castle or whatever it is kind of album covers, but there's something about an album cover that has a lot of layers to what's going on, and it isn't quite apparent what you're looking at first, and that's what makes you want to get the vinyl and have it all fucking big in front of you.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so when you choose those album covers or choose artists, do you go into that with a concept or do you choose an artist and then let them come up with a concept, or how does that roll out?
I definitely choose the concept. I really go into it with something, but at the same time, I look at it whenever I work with an illustrator, a painter, any form of visual artist. it needs to be collaborative, because I'm not the one with that skill set, with that specific skill set. I can ask
Mm-hmm.
them for the top of a mountain. I could ask for the highest reaching thing, but that doesn't mean that that's their strength. So it's always a collaborative thing. Um I will say, like, the Grand Descent was so much me talking to Mary Weiss and being like, oh, can we add this? Can we add this? What if we did this? What if we changed the face? And then the eyes and the nose developed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where it was almost like a hooded figure at first. And I was like, no, let's make it more of like a skull. And but then Beyond the Tomb was just a piece I had seen of his that he had. And I was like, can I commission that? I just saw it with my eye and it was like, these are the colors of Beyond the Tomb. This is like download, like DLC, like downloadable content for the Grand Descent, those 3 songs. And it's
Yeah.
like the one little guy that didn't that got lost from the Grand Descent is on his like track. And I was like, this is gonna fit in perfectly, like thematically, with Beyond the Tomb.
Mm-hmm.
So, even if, whether it's me telling the artist what to do flat out, or me seeing something, I always just try and have like what I want or the vision I see for the songs match it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And do you ever, like, kind of have imagine a kid randomly finding it in a record store and seeing that album cover? Is that ever go into your head of like, that's when you choose something, you think of that
Nah,
ever? Because that's
nah,
really,
never.
it doesn't happen as much anymore. But I have to
Yeah.
admit, and maybe because I'm still old school about it, but an album cover will draw me to an album immediately. Um,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
and I guess probably it's in the metal world that people are getting around to like putting a little more care into the artwork now than they used to. Because for a little while
yeah, definitely.
it was like photograph of a crack on a staircase was the album cover, and
Yeah,
then but now we've gotten back to like legit art.
yeah.
So I love that, and I think that
Me too.
the entire package of this album with the art, it's absolutely fucking great. And
Thank you,
I can't say that enough. Just another quick question. Maybe it's not quick. I don't know. But before I let you go,
dude. Take your time. I'm not doing shit.
oh, okay, cool. Well, so this is a kind of a live performance scenario in question, because I saw you guys when you came through Houston in 20 last year, in May of last year, with Black Dahlia and that entire show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And it was an interesting grouping of bands, just because, I mean, I went because I like Phobophilic and Frozen Soul, and I'm not a huge Black Dahlia fan, but it was everybody together. It was an interesting group of bands. And then I look at what, the tour that you guys are about to go on, where you're opening for Devil Master, and Final Gasp is playing as well. And
Yes.
those are, to me, two very different bands. Still, metal. They go into the
Oh
metal
yeah.
world, and then you guys also are a different flavor in there. So, kind of a two-part question: do you seek out those kinds of tours where it isn't just 5 bands that sound kind of like you guys? And do you how do you think you come across with different kinds of bands when you play live? Like, if you're playing with bands that are more straightforward metal, how do you feel you come across better with more hardcore-ish bands? I know this is kind of a huge
No,
question, but
it's a great question. The
yeah.
answer is we always do better at a metal show. There's never been a doubt in my mind of that. Yeah, and I realized that since like the Boston metal scene started taking us in like 2015. And those 2 years
Mhm.
leading up to it, we were just like a local band. It was just me and 2 of my friends from my hometown. And we just never could find our footing until we finally played like a show out in Boston with
Mhm.
metal, and that's why I realized like that's where we thrive. And it's funny, we've never done just like a full on death metal tour,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
one where it's just front to back, like a Grind Crusher in 1991. I see videos like that. Like I would love. I think that is where Fuming Mouth would thrive. Um, with whatever bands that would be. Um, you know, we live in a day and age where there's a lot of dog shit like new metal bands and like crappy like metalcore bands, and we want to stay away from that.
Yeah.
And like that is a conscious thought. You know, that's conscious, like to be like, this is not who we are. This is going to end up like, how do I put this? Alienating our fans. It's not, that's not going to make sense. But you know, so we're always going to try and tour with bands, even if they aren't in like, even if they aren't a death metal band like Devil Master. It's
Mhm.
still, you know, the same kind of concept where I'm sure they're digging through like Japanese, you know, hardcore Japanese black metal, or you know, and then also doing higher reaching things like, probably I hear sometimes it's almost like King Diamond or something. You know, that's something like Fuming Mouth does, where, you know, I say like the Iron Maiden, but then I go to a death metal demo, and that kind of like ethos is so similar to us that, you know, that I feel like aligns more than us playing with another band that's just in death metal that might not have those same like values.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. I totally get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I, and honestly, there, shit, it's coming up this weekend. I'm going to the, God damn it, my brain just shut off. I'm in fuming mouth mode, and the Wrecking Ball Metal Madness is happening in
Oh,
Dallas. And
yeah.
that's a lineup where I was like, where the fuck's fuming mouth? Because it literally looked like,
Talk to them. We didn't. We would have definitely. Well, actually,
you'll be on the other tour, I think, at that point, or
I think
starting
we'll
it.
be on the other. We are playing like we're playing with Hatebreed and All Out War. I was just on the phone with Mike from All Out War, and
Mm,
we're playing with them, just the three of us, in 2 days, less than 2 days, on Thursday,
yeah,
and then we're doing the tour. So I think it just would have been way too much for us to do. I don't
yeah.
think it would have like worked out, but damn, yeah, I would have
It,
loved to
it
play that.
well, it made me think of that when you said doing a full on death metal, because that's literally almost entirely death metal and Eternal
Yeah,
Champion.
yeah, yeah, right, right, right. Just power metal, just sitting right in the middle of everything else, dude.
Yeah, so it's but anyway, but that's just, it made me think of that. But that definitely
Yeah,
is a lot of those bands, especially bands from Texas, because you know I'm from here, and of course I'm touting Creeping Death and Tribal Gaze and bands like that,
of
and then
course.
of course rest in peace Malignant Altar. They were a fucking killer band from my town.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But those are all bands that have a, I can clearly go to somebody and say, "Hey, are you into death metal? Listen to these bands." And sometimes that's a cool thing. But the coolest thing in the world, and I'm wrapping this up in a nice little bow for you. The coolest thing in the world is bands like Fuming Mouth for me, because
yes,
I love going to someone and saying, "Look, if you like a number of things, you will probably be into this band, but it's better if you just go and listen to it." Because it's like sometimes some music, and there's a lot of, you know, there's getting to be more bands nowadays than there used to be. But there's
yes,
something great about that kind of band, but also we live in an age where somebody says, "Well, what do they sound like?" I'll be like, "Let me send you a link," and then there you
yeah,
go. Like, you know, you don't need my shitty explanation. That's why I do a show where I do album reviews, but I don't like doing standalone album reviews where it's just me talking, because I always start explaining what something sounds like, and then I go, I sound like a fucking idiot. What am I even saying? So I prefer it to be like a conversation, because usually it's
yes,
usually trying to describe, especially the music that makes me excited most of the time, it's usually just me saying a whole bunch of words all together and going, go listen to it. You know?
yeah, 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 yeah,
But so that's what I say for Fuming Mouth and everybody watching this out there. Just go listen to it. And when this comes out, the album will not have been out. This will come out on Monday. So the
yeah.
third is Last Day of Sun. So that, you know, there's still pre-order time out there, ladies and gentlemen, to pre-order this motherfucker. And it is a motherfucker. I would call it that. If there was ever an album that needed that term, I would give it that. Um, but yeah, thank you
Cheers.
so thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. Yeah, thanks so much for doing this. This has been great. Sorry about the time mix up and everything, but we got on it, and we
Austin, what's up, man?
he's gonna he'll I'll send him an email and be like, I don't know what the
No,
hell
you and
happened
I,
with you,
we're not
dude.
taking the L for this.
Yeah, yeah,
Hey, thanks so much
um,
for having me.
yeah. No, thanks for being here, and good luck on the tour, and good luck with the album, and hopefully we'll speak soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you think you're gonna make it out to that Devil Master Fuming Mouth show?
Is it
We're coming
coming?
to Texas.
Are you coming to Houston though, specifically? Because I got a wife and kids and dogs, and it's hard for me to make trips sometimes.
Yeah, the trip out might be a bitch, but we'll talk afterwards.
Okay,
We'll see.
all right,
Yeah.
sounds good, man. Thanks so much.
Hey, thanks so much, man.
Have a good night.
You too. Later.